Welcome to this video on multiplication, and our objectives are to multiply numbers with the same sign and also to multiply numbers with different signs. What is the first problem? It says find the product. What's a product? The product is nothing more than the result of multiplication. So product is what? It's the result of multiplication. And so what's an example of a product? Well, we can write down 2 times 5, and what's the product or the result or the answer? 2 times 5 is 10, and so what's the product? The product is 10. 10 is the product. So now for our problem, we have -3 times a -4, and we need some rules because notice the signs were the same there. And so what do you do when the signs are the same? So what happens when you multiply with the same or like signs? So multiply with same signs or like signs. What are the rules? Well, the first rule is to just multiply by the absolute value of the factors. So we want to multiply by the absolute value of factors. And we need to ask ourselves, what does factor mean? We're using the word factors. What are factors? Factors. So factors are nothing more than the numbers that are being multiplied. So factors are the numbers being multiplied. Numbers being multiplied. Okay, so looking at our first problem, what are the factors in the first problem? We have -3 times -4. The factors are -3 and -4. So when we multiply those two, the absolute values of those is just 3 times 4, and what is 3 times 4? 12. Okay, but how about the sign? What is the sign going to be? Is it going to be a positive 12 or a negative 12? Well, the product or the sign of the product is positive. If we have like signs or the same signs, the product is positive. So our answer or our product is plus 12. Okay, now what is 2 times 3? We just take the absolute value, that's 6, and we have like signs, so the product is just 6 plus 6. Notice in problem C we have a positive and a negative. We have different signs. One's positive and one's negative. So we need different rules. Before we had like signs, now we have different signs. So what do you do when you multiply with different signs? Multiply with different signs. Well, the first step, we're going to just do the same thing that we did before, and that's just take the absolute values of both of our numbers and multiply the absolute value of the numbers, and remember the numbers are called the factors. So multiply absolute value of factors, exactly the same as we did in the previous two problems. So in our problem, what is 4 times 8? The absolute value of both of those numbers, 32. And then we need to determine what the sign of the product is. What's the product? Will it be positive or negative? And as you might guess, before it was positive, so this time it's negative. So the product is negative with different signs. So we just put a negative sign in there. Our next problem, we take the absolute value of both of those numbers. That's 5 times 6. What is that? 30. And the sign again is negative. Okay, let's look at the next problem. We notice that we have a positive sign with 2, but 0 is neither positive nor negative. So what do you do when you multiply with 0? So multiply with 0. If 0 is one of our factors, then the product is 0. So the product is 0 if any of our factors are 0. In this case, we had one factor was 0. That means that the product is 0. Now, the next problem, notice we have a bunch of factors, and we have 4 of them that are negative. And what is 4? Odd number or an even number? Well, 4 is an even number. And so what happens when you multiply with an even number of negative factors? Since we had 4 negative factors, we'd like to know what do you do when you multiply with an even number of negative factors. We know we're going to multiply the numbers, but we'd like to know, are we going to have a positive or a negative result? And you could actually multiply these out and you'd see what you'd get, but it'd be nice to just have a rule. So anytime we have an even number of negative factors, the product will be positive. So the product is positive. So let's go ahead and multiply these. What's 2 times 3? 6 times 1. 6 times 2 is 12. Times 1 is 12. So we write down the product as 12, and then the sign of the product we said is positive, and so it's positive. We don't need to put a plus sign in there. We know that without a negative sign it must be positive. Alright, let's take a look at the next one. The next one has a bunch of factors again, and let's count the negative factors. There are 3. And what is 3, an odd number or an even number? Well, 3 is an odd number, so this is different than the previous problem. We're going to be multiplying with an odd number of negative factors, and we would like to know what the sign of the product is. So if we multiply with an odd number of negative factors, as you might guess, the product is going to be different than it was when we had an even number, and in that case the product was positive. So what's the product? In this case, the product is negative. Product is negative. So all we need to do is multiply our numbers together and put a negative sign for the product. So what is 3 times 2? 6 times 1. 6 times 4 is 24 times 2 is 48. So we write down the 48 and we put a negative sign in front of it. So our product is negative 48. Notice in the next problem we have one of our factors is 0, and we said anytime that one of the factors is 0, the product is 0. So let's see, have we multiplied numbers with the same sign? Yes, we did that. Have we multiplied numbers with different signs? Yes, and as a matter of fact we multiplied numbers with 0 also. And that does it for this time. See you next time.